Hi everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Stacks of Questions. Thank you so much for joining us for our second episode. Tonight you're joined, I am joined I should say, by my two lovely team leaders. We have Morag Shaw heading up the blue team.
Hello there.
And we have Colin Lamont heading up the red team.
Hello.
Hi guys, and I'm Kim Jeans as always, your illustrious host, and we're going to be playing Stacks of Questions. So let's get into what our task is this week. So today's challenge that we're setting for the red and blue teams is called Compute the Truth. Each of our teams are going to be asked to write a single multiple choice question that could assess a student's understanding of a selected topic. And we know in a second we'll be choosing that using our awesome selectors. The twist this week, however, is that the wrong answers, the distractors in this case, must be plausible misconceptions. So something that kids are commonly tripped on is what we're looking for the bonus point this week, guys. Okay, so let's get across to our selectors. Are we doing National 5 or higher? I felt like you got an easy one last week, so let's see if we can get something a bit more difficult. We've got a higher one and moment of truth. Databases. Ooh, okay. So how are we feeling about those ones, guys? Okay?
Super excited.
Excellent.
Super excited. Good. We've not given you a topic this week because I feel like we want to keep it really open, and we've not kind of deep dived into what the units within the unit, what topic specifically, so that you guys can hopefully not come up with the exact same question. All right, so we'll start our timer probably 5 to 10 minutes this week. We'll see how we get on. This week's guest is Darren Brown. He is joining us from Inverness High School. He has been, I'm guessing not a PT for 22 of those years, but teaching for 22 years, Darren, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, I've been on my own quite a lot, but not PT for all of those.
Well, that's some of the things I think is going to touch on some of the stuff we're talking about tonight. So we're going to focus on moderation and cross-marking. So let's start off with a little bit of what does that mean for you within your department or within your authority? What does it look like?
I think for us, it's a big deal for us to make sure we're being fair across the pupils. So it's important that we do have a look at how we're all teaching it, checking it against the criteria, making sure there's consistency. Just gives us a bit more confidence as well in what we're doing. I think the big thing for us is we always talk about being open and honest, challenge each other, even though I'm a PT, I'm saying to people a lot of the time, I'm just guessing. A lot of the time I'm like, my hunch is this, but am I wrong? Is the level right? So I think you need to have that kind of fair discussion and spend some time on that. I think the big thing for us is time. I mean, I think we're often saying in the school, we love to do moderation more, but we want time for it. And it's the same with the authority. We used to get a couple of days a year where computer teachers could actually meet and we could discuss various things, and we could look at levels of work and we could look at assessments. But I sometimes worry it becomes a bit of literally a tick-a-box exercise where people just get a pen out and they get the green pen and they tick everything off. But I think we often try to say that, for every, hour we might moderate, we would like to have an hour just to discuss it and talk about, what's come from it. I think that's quite important.
I think what's certainly well, there's quite a lot of, when you guys are so far away as well, like trying to.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big thing. And we'll talk later on about the in-person and the virtual kind of stuff. But even just the fact CFE, quite rightly, we were all given a lot of flexibility. And then I think people felt later on that it was kind of like, oh, here's the assessment now, and we want to know where kids are at nationally. Mm-hmm. So many schools do different assessments. I think that's quite a big thing. And I think at the end of it, there has to be a bit of a verification. You have to say, well, wait a minute, is this assessment tool right? Is it giving us what we're wanting? Is it getting the end points that we are looking for? I think we start with the E's and O's and benchmarks, but we kind of turn that into our own kind of criteria for all our different projects about what we want to see. But I think the big things are teachers improving what they're doing, discussing what they're doing, and making sure it is fair for all the pupils.
Yeah. Would you say at your school, this is maybe going off a tangent a bit, but like within your school, I know that you're mostly by yourself and you do have another member of staff kind of dipping their toe, as it were, into computing. When you do get a chance to moderate, because I think the time for that has definitely come down over the years, and you're not the only authority I know who's having difficulties with that. Do you guys find that when you do get a chance to moderate, is it more focused on the senior phase and some of those certificate classes, or is it the opposite in that we feel more comfortable with the senior phase now and that maybe you're doing more of the junior stuff, CFE?
I think there's still a bit of a worry that maybe we're too focused on the senior phase. You know, there's still a bit of cross marking, prelims, and we do like a past coursework as a project because we don't really look at the project materials for the kids. So we like to be able to say to the parents and for estimates to do both. I think the good thing for us is, you know, we've got Google Classroom and all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about how we facilitate that and that. But that it is possible for us to go away and do a bit of marking, a bit of kind of sampling, a bit of cross-checking, putting some notes and stuff on separately before we come back and discuss it. But there's certainly, I think with the BGE, there's key tasks. I think you can't do it all the time. I think in each year group, we've got key tasks where we say, look, we definitely have to sit down and look at this one. And the other thing is, particularly if they're new tasks, you know, there are things in the BGE that we're comfortable with. You know, we've got some projects and things and research stuff that we do. And I think, you know, there's no point in us sitting every year for a couple of hours looking at what we've marked with that because we are quite comfortable. But then at any time, somebody can always flag, you know yourself, people will say, I'm not sure about this pupil, I'm not sure about this piece of work, you know, I'm not sure about this question. So we can always hone in and focus on that.
Absolutely. And so how, when you guys do manage to get together, I mean, the next 2 points, sort of facilitation and in-person and virtual, probably overlap a little bit. So tell us a little bit about how you guys do it, because there's a lot of you who are just by yourself.
So even in the school, we are all, you know, in our Google Classroom setup, we are all teachers of everybody's classes, so we can always go in as a teacher and view the work, you know, and we try and make sure we look in, and we do that tick a box, kind of making sure you put in a wee comment and a date to say I've been in there, you know, I've looked at this, or I've flagged something or commented on it. That helps across the whole region. We can add anybody into the Google Classroom as a teacher, and they can come in and do things. I think the big thing is, I think you still need in person. I think if you want that proper dialogue and you want that kind of people feeling safe to eventually kind of be comfortable enough to challenge things or say, I'm not sure, I think that face-to-face is there, but we do have the option to do the virtual stuff. I think the problem I've had in the past is the virtual stuff sometimes then involves lots of scanning and stuff. So you've also got that time beforehand, that whole kind of admin, the bureaucracy of, I'm getting verified for National 4 and I'm way across on the West Coast. A couple of people are always good. People always say, I'll help. I'll have a look at a few things for you. But then there's the case of scanning it all and downloading stuff and then uploading it. I think we are very much more wanting it to be a one-stop shop. You know, if it's in Google Classroom, we can, you know, give people access, we can give people logins. To be fair, I think the SQA have moved on a lot with that. When I was verified for level 6 cybersecurity, the person who verified, I should shout out Jackie Campbell in Lithgow. She was great because there wasn't many people doing level 6 cyber, and I gave her a login and access to my classroom. Even the verifier from the SQA, he was quite happy for me to give him a login, give him teacher access. So I wasn't having to print or download or fill in extra tables and forms. It was all on the one system. There was my comments. You could see that Jackie had been in and done various things, and then he could go in and do things as well. So I think maybe we're getting a bit better at that. The virtual in some ways should help, I think, if we can streamline it, because people hate doing things multiple times. People hate marking something and then having to fill in another sheet and then another spreadsheet and then another report document. And things like that. I mean, we still do, particularly when newer teachers in the region, we still do meets and we do things like cross-marking prelims. We get the green pens out. Again, we try and do them as twilights, and they sometimes run on a little bit. But again, we try and say, you know, if we're there for 2.5 hours, we'll do 1.5 hours of marking, try and mark as much as we can, sample of kind of variety of different prelims, because most people are doing different prelims, you know, get green pen on it to show that we've been through it. But then also make sure there is at least an hour to discuss things, because you know, the moderation thing is not worth much if you're just going to sit there for a couple of hours and just mark things and put a little smiley face and a green pen on it at the end of it. But we do a bit of that. But what I would say is, you know, I think a big thing is just asking people for help. I think that's a great thing about STACS, is there's a proper network of people. And I think if you ever post anything and you say to somebody, I know somebody who's doing this course, I don't know anybody else who does it, across the country, it's quite easy to fit them together. And people are, particularly the computing teachers, because we're quite a small band, we're so nice to each other, and people will, you know, give you their time and various things like that. But I think we don't want to lose that in person. I think at times you have to have that face-to-face social thing, because it's got to be a proper open, you know, it's like if you're on a call and there's lots of you looking at a document, it's easy for some people to be passive or not want to put their voice forward. But if you can let them mix in a room and properly
Yeah.
discuss stuff, it makes a big difference.
And how many? So are you the subject network lead for the Highlands and Islands, or not?
Yeah, probably unofficially.
Unofficially, okay. And then
yeah, I mean,
the network of people that when I'm just thinking, like, so if there's a school, say, and somebody new starts, is it automatic they kind of join into your computer science network and then become part of this moderation?
Yeah, they would be, very much, brought in and kind of nurtured along, and everybody would introduce themselves. And we've always had to do a bit of virtual. I mean, the one I always quote is like Highland is the area of Belgium, so there is a bit of a problem with that. But yeah, they're people are very good, and I think that's the thing. Even new teachers have a lot to offer. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, what's the point of me marking your stuff?" It's like, well, I'm always quite interested to see what you pick up. It's the same as sharing materials. It's people say, well, a lot of people, they don't share materials. It's not because they don't want to share. It's because they're a bit scared of their materials. And it's the same as their opinions on marking. I'm always like, you'll be amazed at the things you do and the things you say that you might think are little things, but they make a difference to other people. So yeah, we bring people in. We have networks of people in the email backwards and forwards and things like that. And we do try and do visits and things like that. We let people come and see other teachers. It's hard, it's getting harder and harder to get out of school at times, but it does make a major difference, the kind of in-person thing.
It's really interesting how actually they run it, because you guys are in the position where you're so far apart and there is so few of you. I almost think that potentially, some of the best practices then happening with moderation and things, because I know that, like, say, I'm down in Fife and there's loads of us, and we do a lot of moderation cross-marking in-house because we have a big department, but therefore there's not enough of looking out and talking to their schools. And it's interesting, we've had a new member of staff who's joined, over the last couple of years, and even just the difference it's made having him with a new set of eyes. So the three of us who've worked together for so long, he's questioned things that we've just kind of used for ages, and I thought, of course, that makes sense. Let's change things. So it definitely, I think, is really important. Okay, let's finish off with our question of the week then. So if others were looking to start a new moderation process, because what you've said sounded amazing, perhaps if they're going to do this cross school, or there were maybe a one-person department, have you got any sort of tips you would give them to help them get started, Darren?
Yeah, I would start by asking for time. I think in education in general, there's a lot of talk about workload, and there's a lot of things where people will say, "Oh, yeah, but if you were going to do that with every pupil, it would only take 5 minutes." But then I always liken it to, but 5 minutes with the 200 pupils I see a week is 16 hours. It's easy to say, "Oh, that won't take long." So I would definitely do that, and I would reach out before you get to the assessment. I would ask people, I would speak to people of things that you're not sure about. As I said, whether it's nationally with STACS or whether it's just people local to it, or anybody you want to contact. I mean, the thing with me is a lot of people contact me and then I say, well, I know who to go and speak to about games development or data science or cybersecurity or these sort of things. You're literally just pass them on to other people. But I think they've got to be, willing to say, I need a bit of time to do this, or I need a bit of support. I think the other big things are, you do have to be open for constructive criticism. I know, like, we've made materials and stuff before, and I've said, like, you need to be brutally honest with me. And it is hard when people say, yeah, that question's rubbish, or I'm not sure about that. But it's like, we do need to have that kind of level of thick-skinnedness to say, look, we're all professionals, we're working together here, we want the best we can. So I think, you've got to just be willing to kind of do that and give their views. As I said, that your views are valid. I've learned more from student teachers, just as much from student teachers coming in saying these are new things we're doing than I have from people who've taught for years and years and years. And I think find ways to streamline it and digitize it. I'm really big on this one-stop shop. I want to mark something once live. I want to speak to the kid. I want to put some notes in. I want that to go into one system where it is, and then all the people, all the stakeholders in terms of moderation, my SLT, people who are coming from outside, verifiers from SQA, can all just go into the one system. I think we're still a bit guilty of having to do 100 different things and different paperwork just to put the same data into different places. But definitely reach out and ask, particularly the STACS group. I think any messages and stuff that you put on there.
And the AI behind now that you can see other people who, when I was going on to see the top members, it'll say to me, oh, Darren does cybersecurity, or Kim does data science, or whatever. So that's quite nice as well, isn't it, to be able to reach out to the right people.
The AI stuff's an interesting point as well, because certainly in our first year now, when they're doing like their little reports on their favourite devices. We're giving them prompts that have the task and have the rubric in it, and we're getting them to run it through the AI. Try and use it in a more positive manner to see what it kind of gives them feedback on. And maybe down the road, that's where we're going. Maybe it will make our lives easier once we get our heads around the best way to use it and stuff like that. But certainly, yeah, I think we need to be careful. It's not just putting green pen over everything for the sake of putting green pen over it. I think you need to think, if I'm going to spend this time moderating and cross-marking and verification, I need to spend just as much time chatting about it and, actually improving what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Darren. I hope you're going to stick about and be our guest judge for today. Let's head over and see how the teams are doing. Okay, blue team, Morag, let's start with you. What have you got to share with us?
Well, what I have is a multiple choice question, 4 possible answers, higher database as you required. Got it right this week. So 3 tables, student, class, teacher, attributes listed, and which query below correctly shows the total number of students in each class. So we've got 4 options. All of them select the same 2 items, class ID and count star from student. Query A uses group by class ID. Query B uses order by class ID. Query C doesn't have a group by or an order by, and query D has group by class ID, but unfortunately query D has the incorrect aggregate function. It's got sum star, so it's got class ID and sum star. So the correct answer would be A. B is incorrect because you wanted discriminators that are plausible. B is incorrect because it's incorrectly using order by instead of group by, but that can be quite common because kids get that very often confused. Order by and group by seem to do a similar sort of thing.
Yeah,
group by does do sorting the groups ascending by default. So that's a very easy source of confusion. C wouldn't actually work because it wouldn't run, it wouldn't execute because an execution error, because in fact there's no grouping and you can't have the 2 fields in the select without the grouping. You can't have the aggregate, without the grouping. And in D, sum is going to do the wrong one. Sum star is not correct anyway. It would need a name for a field in there, and it's the wrong aggregate function. So
very nice and beautifully laid out, I must say. And your yes and no flags.
Yeah, I know. I did a wee bit of time, so I went and got some yes and no flags.
That's what Darren and I must have been talking too long. Fantastic. Okay, over to the red team.
So I went with compound key because it's quite a small bit of the database topic, but it's quite easy to kind of gloss over. So I went with identify the best description of a compound key. So option A, 2 or more fields used as a primary key, which sometimes actually is what kids will understand a compound key to be, but that is in fact a composite key. B, uniquely identifies a record. That's just your bog standard National 5 description for a primary key, so not really enough for higher. C is the correct option. 2 or more foreign keys used together to create a primary key. And then D, a primary key that has been added as an additional field to the record. And again, that's advanced higher, so that's a surrogate key. So bringing in a few different key words, but we were looking for the compound key, so it was option C was the correct answer.
And you're right, A is a common misconception that kids would say, because it can have additional fields, but it is usually foreign keys, isn't it? So common misconception. Well done, both of you got that. Okay, let's move on to our final section. Red team versus blue team. Darren, what do you think?
I thought Colin's question was a really good question. I think it would cause a lot of discussion. I'm a bit biased because Morag is the queen of databases, and she absolutely saved me when I had to teach myself all that National 5 and higher database stuff. Again, that I hadn't done for years, but I really liked her question with the code. I think coding questions that kids can read through and discuss and really get them thinking. So I am going with Morag. Is she the red team? Am I correct?
She's the blue team, is she?
She's
You're
the blue
the
team.
blue
I'm going with the
team.
blue team.
Blue team. She's the blue
I'm
team.
sorry, Colin.
Very well done, Morag. Very well done. So for our
Okay.
final scores on the doors. We have 1 to the blue team, well done, Morag, and 1 to the red team. So we're at a nice draw heading into episode 3. Thank you so much for your efforts this week, team leaders. Darren, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you all next time for episode 3. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Speak to you later. Bye.